This evening, let's explore meditation secrets to solving real problems. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. Welcome to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you through the Patreon platform. This evening, we could chant and meditate and enjoy a lesson or two. But first, if you love Star Wars and you wish to meditate as transformatively as General Leia Organa on Agent Kloss under the guidance of Luke Skywalker, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Good news! If at any point during this evening's live stream you have a specific question about Buddhist meditation, Buddhist philosophy, or how to apply them to your life, simply type your question in great detail in the chat window on the right-hand side of the screen. Tonight's lesson comes from the 45th verse of the spaciousness of Vajrasattva, known in Tibetan as Dorje Sempa Namka Che. It was written by Prahe Vajra, whose name translates into Tibetan as Gaurab Dorje. The text begins, "From the colors of the rainbow, the primordial families and their qualities are figuratively manifest in the transmutation of the 5 poisons into the 5 wisdoms. Compounded moving parts and the uncompounded moving base, along with the deities of the 5 elements that animate creation." And a very intelligent response would be, what? Exactly. So let's break this bad boy down. A vertebrate life upon this planet has evolved to think symbolically. So you might very well ask yourself, why bother with similes, metaphors, and hyperbole? Because they speak to us deeply, precognitively, viscerally. I'm forever grateful to the late Tulku Thondup, for it was he who first introduced me to the concepts of the 5 poisons and the 5 wisdoms. Now, prior to him, I was led to believe that the 5 wisdoms were the antidote to the 5 problems, and that was a worthless bit of trivia. But he taught the opposite. He was the first to teach me that there's one antidote for all our mental poisons, and that is letting go of things, or letting go of things as if they were as non-graspable as a vast empty void, or known more concisely as emptiness. And he taught that, or he was the one who taught me that when we apply emptiness to the 5 mental poisons of hate, craving, confusion, jealousy, or pride, they transform into mirror-like wisdom, discerning wisdom, the basic space of phenomena, the wisdom of the basic space of phenomena, all-accomplishing wisdom, and equalizing wisdom. And that seemed much easier. One antidote for all problems. And of course, if you're geeky like me, you'll think one ring to rule them all, one meditation to heal us all. So it would make much more sense at this point for us to take a deeper look at this whole idea of emptiness meditation. Now, by the way, mindfulness and meditation are known by many names. Zen, Chan, Dhyana, Mahamundara, Mahasandhi, Yati, Yoga, Dzogchen, and Triksho. Now, this might sound very exotic, but the technique is simple. It's a mistake to confuse mindfulness with active concentration. Mindfulness is nothing more than being perceptive and allowing our perception to be vulnerable, passive, visceral, and random. We're wired to practice this type of perception during our inhalation, for that is when we naturally and spontaneously access our sympathetic nervous system. And of all the very many ways we can do it, the easiest is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. And when we do that, we will automatically notice all sorts of things. Perceptions, such as sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like. And also mind's more coarser functions, such as emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. And so a reasonable question would be, what do we do with all the stuff that we notice? And the answer is we meditate. But how do we do that? Simple. Every time we exhale, we accidentally, inadvertently, and automatically access our parasympathetic nervous system, which is wired for both mental release as well as physical relaxation. When we do that, that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could now feel as non-graspable as if it was a vast, empty void. Now, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. So, what is a real-world example of a non-graspable, vast, empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could be tantalizing to the eye, is quite intangible to our grasp? So there you have it. Emptiness is nothing literal to be believed in or literal to be figured out. It's just a metaphor for the experience of non-graspability, which is as close as our next relaxing exhalation. And now, hopefully, we're well equipped to return to the second half of this evening's verse. Compounded moving parts and the uncompounded unmoving base. In other words, the way things appear to us as we breathe in, and the way things feel to us as we relax into our exhalation. And now we get spooky again, we get metaphoric, along with the deities of the five elements that animate creation. So way back at the end of the Bronze Age, at the beginning of the Iron Age, it was thought there were 4 or 5 elements, which is much simpler than our current periodic table. So they thought there were 5 elements. And just like the 5 poisons, if we notice something when we breathe in, and when we relax when we breathe out, it could feel more manageable. Life is a weird thing, and we notice all types of bizarro things. We notice that which is external and internal, physical and mental, pleasurable and painful, interesting and boring, glorious and grotesque. And so some of the things we notice are pleasurable, painful, or just neutral. Things like water, fire, space, wind, and earth. But when we relax after noticing whatever comes up, then water could feel inhalation's mindfulness and exhalation's meditation effortlessly lavish our experience of water as with the empowerment of Akshobhya, fire as with the empowerment of real or imagined Amitabha, space as with the empowerment of real or imagined Varuchana, wind as with the empowerment of real or imagined Amagosiddhi, and earth as with the empowerment of real or imagined Ratnasambhava. Do we have to believe in these things? No. Do we have to memorize all the different attributes of these real or imagined 5 archetypal Buddhas? No, we don't. Here's the basic thing. Empowerment does not come from living in a small cage, free from trolls and fools and stuff like that. Empowerment comes from grabbing the present moment by the horns, whether it's glorious or grotesque, grabbing it by the horns with each inhalation and letting go with each exhalation. That doesn't stop trolls from being trolls or fools from being fools or the greedy from being greedy. It doesn't even stop us from having a negative reaction to what we perceive. Negative reactions like pushing and pulling and stuff like that. But it does help us to ease up off of our very bad habit, a very exhausting habit of living in resistance. And now, let's turn our attention to tonight's practice text. My adaptation of the Anapanasati Sutta. I like to call it secular contemplation, mindfulness, and meditation. We're going to begin by chanting just 4 lines. There's nothing magical here. There's no prayer here. We're just exercising the neural pathways responsible for empathy and enthusiasm. Together. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. You know, the cool thing is this works whether the Buddha is real or purely archetypical. Because if Buddha is just a legend, just a story, then it's still a source of an example, poignant, instructions, helpful, and students that we can emulate if we're fortunate enough to find one who are more flexible than they are rigid, who are more loving than they are fearful, who are more laid back than they are controlling. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. May I liberate all beings from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging by relying on the Buddha's example, instructions, and students. So, we're going to play with 16 exercises of the Anapanasati Sutta. Anapanasati could be translated as mindfulness coordinated with breathing discourse. We're going to play with 16 exercises, which divide into 4 sets of 4 exercises. And classically, these 4 exercises often come at the end, but I feel they work better at the beginning. We're going to begin with Karuna and Tilakkhana, or compassion and the 3 marks of reality, to help us to circumstantially let go. And of course, usually we just play with 1 mark of reality, but once again, I really feel this is useful. And what matters most is not what matters most to these teachings is how well they work. So we're going to play with a series of 4 rhetorical questions. Where stress? Now, because it's rhetorical, we don't have to answer it. It works better if we don't try. So let's play with this right now. If you're watching this live, an easy answer to this question would be, well, there's a lot of stress in the African continent, and there's a lot of stress in Israel right now, and there's a lot of stress in the Ukraine right now. These are not the only places there are stress. There can be stress in our sinuses. There can be stress in our workplace. But those are really good examples. having enhanced our awareness of stress, we can now allow that awareness of stress to fuel our empathy for all beings everywhere, with the wish, may all beings' stressors now be soothed. And we can shrink that just into a one-syllable contemplation. May all be soothed, or better yet, all soothed. So this is not an affirmation. We're not trying to visualize or believe or even emote. We're just using this as an exercise for our intention. That's all. We got intention with our words. The Buddha taught an eightfold path. The second fold of the eightfold path is right aspiration or wishing love. And that's what we're practicing right now. The first fold of the eightfold path is right view of reality. The Buddha taught there are many things we could contemplate, but that just as no footprint presses deeper in the mud than that of an elephant, similarly, no object of contemplation impacts us quite as deeply as that of impermanence. That the fancy name for impermanence is anicca. And so we're going to contemplate that right now with the rhetorical question, what change? We come to our fourth and final contemplation. And so here's the idea. As we breathe in, we can notice all sorts of things. And as we exhale and relax into our exhalation, that which we noticed during our inhalation could feel as non-graspable as if it just wasn't me or you. There's nothing to believe, there's nothing to understand. It's just a turn of phrase to help us get better and better at letting go. So during our inhalation, we ask the rhetorical question, is this me or me? And the answer is no. We don't have to believe it. We don't have to understand it. We're just playing with it to get more and more comfortable with letting go. Some people first meditate and then they contemplate. Some people first contemplate and then they meditate. I've practiced both for numerous decades, and I prefer this sequence. Our first 4 meditations will serve as a bit of the old preliminary practice. We could call this Kaya Sati, which is only one set. We continue with Kaya Sati's only set of 4 preliminary meditations to center our bodies. This rhetorical question helps us to explore how long our breath may be. We're not trying to make it long, we're just exercising our awareness. We're going to continue to play with our awareness, but just this time from a different perspective. We're going to play with the rhetorical question, how short? Remember, it's not our job to answer. So for the last two exercises, the confines of our mindfulness have been our respiratory system. We're now going to allow our mindfulness to expand outward in all directions like a sphere. And this time we're going to allow our mindfulness to envelop our entire body. The monosyllabic synonym for body is form. So we're going to, during the inhalation, we're going to silently and mentally recite the verb feel. And during the exhalation, we're going to silently and mentally recite the noun form. So this is super, super easy. It's so easy, the Buddha taught, it's possible to accomplish full enlightenment in just 1 week. As someone tells you, enlightenment's only for special people who have PhDs. Remember, the Buddha taught in the final pages of the Satipatthana Sutta, that full enlightenment could be accomplished in as little as 7 years, or 7 quarters, or 7 months, or 7 fortnights, or 7 weeks, or even 7 days. If someone tells you otherwise, thank them for your time and find a better teacher. And this is our first of several opportunities to experience bliss this evening. And now we come to our first experience of emptiness. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the noun form. As we breathe out, we silently and mentally recite the verb ease, which is a synonym for relax. And the cool thing is we don't have to force relaxation. We are already wired to relax every time we exhale, whether we intend to or not. We come to the third of 4 sets of 4 exercises. We continue with Vedana Sati, set of 4 jhana meditations centering on our feelings. Some people have been taught that jhana is very mysterious. It's not. It's super easy. It's not only for special people. It's for all of us. We're going to savor the first jhana's blissful joy that flows from gently grinning with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes towards our bodies of flesh, blood, and bone. Grin. We silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun form. Excuse me. We come to the second of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices, where we savor the second jhanas, or levels, peaceful joy that flows from gently grinning, once again, with the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes, towards our thoughts. And we're using thought as an umbrella term, towards our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term, thoughts. We come to the third of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the third jhana's contentment. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining. How do we do that? As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term, thoughts. It's just that easy. We come to the fourth of 4 feeling-oriented centering practices where we savor the fourth jhana's neutrality by allowing our thoughts, emoting, intending, reasoning, recalling, and imagining to tranquilly relax. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term thoughts. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb ease. we conclude, or we continue with Chitta Sati's second set of 4 jhana meditations centering on our mind. We begin with the first of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 5th jhana, sphere of infinite spaciousness. By mindfully noticing, investigating, and coalescing our minds' ability to see, hear, feel, smell, taste, and the like. And we're using mind here once again as an umbrella term. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb feel. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the noun mind. We come to the second of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 6th jhana's sphere of infinite awareness, which we generate by allowing our mind to gladden, as towards it we gently smile. Once again, from the corners of our mouth, the apples of our cheeks, and the crow's feet of our eyes. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the verb grin. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term mind. We come to the third of 4 mind-oriented centering practices, where we savor the 7th jhana sphere of non-graspability, as we allow our minds, seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, smelling, and the like, to tranquilly relax in the most sustainable way. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term mind. As we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb ease. We conclude with the fourth of 4 mind-oriented centering practices where we savor the 8th jhana's sphere of acquiescent non-labeling by experiencing the liberating equanimity of our controlling tendencies to shove and reach. As we breathe in, we silently and mentally recite the umbrella term mind. And as we exhale, we silently and mentally recite the verb free. Let us seal this evening's practice with a bit of the O by chanting the 4 immeasurables. May everyone be free from misery, may everyone be happy. May no one be separated from the happiness. May everyone have balance from the tyranny of hating, craving, and clinging, freed. Oopsie, wrong button. Let's try that again. If you feel that I've earned it, you could type something in the chat window. You could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could share it with a friend. You could even help support this channel on Patreon, either by capturing the QR code on the screen or clicking the link in the description area below the video. In approximately 10 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead tomorrow's early morning lesson and meditation. Until then, may you and yours be happy and healthy. And if you are as geeky as me, this is the way.